Kimberly welcomed her son's bride, Diana, with warmth and joy, believing it was the beginning of a beautiful new chapter for their family. As she took Diana's hands, preparing to share a heartfelt message, her gaze fell on something that made her freeze in shock. A birthmark on Diana's hand looked eerily familiar, stirring painful memories that she had buried for years. Kimberly's son, Richard, had moved to Chicago 4 years ago, and though they had stayed in touch initially, their conversations grew infrequent as he became busier with work. She missed him deeply, but understood that he needed to build his own life. However, she often worried about him living alone, knowing that, as an introvert, he might struggle to make close connections. A year after moving, Richard had excitedly shared that he had met a wonderful woman named Diana. Kimberly had never heard him speak about a girl with such admiration before, so she knew Diana must be special. Over the years, he spoke more about her, and eventually, he announced that they were engaged. Kimberly was overjoyed and immediately began preparing for the wedding, eager to meet the woman who had captured her son's heart. The couple decided to hold their wedding at home, which thrilled Kimberly as it meant she wouldn't have to travel far. She threw herself into the preparations with love and dedication, ensuring everything was perfect for the big day. Though she had spoken to Diana on the phone several times, she had never seen a photo of her, making her even more eager for their first meeting in person. When the wedding day arrived, Kimberly dressed in her best attire and headed to the venue, excitement filling her heart. Upon arrival, she spotted Richard and rushed to embrace him, overwhelmed with pride and love. But just as she was basking in the joy of reuniting with her son, she turned to greet Diana and felt her world tilt. Diana, standing before her in a beautiful white gown, was breathtaking. She beamed with happiness, introducing herself warmly. Kimberly responded with admiration, calling her beautiful. But as she held Diana's hands, her eyes locked onto the birthmark, and a wave of shock overtook her. Her hands trembled as memories came flooding back. Her biological daughter, who had gone missing years ago, had the exact same mark. Desperate for answers, Kimberly asked Diana where her parents were sitting. After being introduced, she quietly asked to speak with them in private. With a deep breath, she cautiously inquired if Diana was adopted. The question immediately unsettled them. They exchanged nervous glances before reluctantly admitting the truth. They had found Diana abandoned as a child and, after reporting it to the police with no parents coming forward, adopted her. As Kimberly processed their words, Diana, who had been watching from a distance, grew increasingly anxious. When she heard Kimberly mention that her daughter had gone missing in Alabama 20 years ago and had the same birthmark, she couldn't stay silent any longer. Overwhelmed, she ran towards them, crying out, "Is this true? Am I adopted?" Her adoptive parents, now visibly emotional, confirmed it, explaining that they had searched for her biological family but never found them. Diana was devastated. The happiest day of her life had suddenly turned into a nightmare. If Kimberly was truly her mother, that meant Richard was her brother, and their wedding could not happen. Heartbroken, she turned to Richard and sobbed, apologizing and saying they could no longer be together. But to her surprise, Richard remained calm, taking her hands and reassuring her with a smile. Richard then revealed a truth of his own. He was not Kimberly's biological son. After losing her daughter, Kimberly had adopted Richard and raised him as her own. This meant that he and Diana were not related by blood, and their love was not forbidden. A wave of relief washed over everyone as the shocking twist settled in. What began as a heartbreaking discovery turned into a miraculous reunion. With tears of joy in her eyes, Kimberly gave them her blessing, and the wedding continued as planned, now with an even deeper meaning. The day ended not only in celebration of love, but also in the long-awaited reunion of a mother and her lost daughter.